Meeting of the Troy Zoning Board of Appeals. The agendas were placed at the back of the room. Of course, they're online as well. And at this point in time, before we can conduct any business, I'm going to call on Mr. Evans to call the roll to see that we have quorum. Mr. Evans.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Agawas.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
All right, we have quorum. And I'm going to just state this really quickly for any petitioner in the massive overfill audience that we have tonight. Since we don't have a full board, we're normally 7. That's what City Council appoints, and then there's 2 alternates, but obviously not everyone can make it tonight. So if a petitioner chooses to, they can request of this board to postpone their consideration to the next meeting. This board doesn't have the requirement to do that, even if you request it. But if you request it, we may consider that, or we would consider it, and then we would put it on the next agenda. It's really up to the petitioner. So I just want to kick that out before I forget to do that, because sometimes I do forget mentioning that. So when we call anyone forward on any agenda item, we really only have one action item here tonight. So it's on the petitioner to mention that if they want that, or if you don't say anything, we just keep on moving. I'm going to call on Vice Chairman Agawas now for the rules and the procedures that we operate by. So for people who are watching at home or who are in our audience, they have a better idea of what to expect.
The Zoning Board of Appeals is a group of 7 of your neighbors appointed by City Council to decide on requests for variances and other matters that are brought before them. A variance is a relaxation of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance. Petitioners must indicate a hardship or practical difficulty with the land that would warrant the granting of the variance. The board will hear the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. When an item is called, the chairman will verify that the petitioner is present. Then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. The petitioner will then be given an opportunity to address the board to explain the justification for the action requested. After the petitioner makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairman will open the public hearing. Any person wishing to speak on the request should raise their hand, and when recognized by the chairman, come up to the podium. The speaker should identify themselves with name and address, indicate their relationship to the property in question, such as next door neighbor, live beyond the property, etc., and state whether they are in favor of or against the variance request and give reasons for their opinion. Comments must be directed through the chairman. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and closely pertain to the matter under consideration. Only one person will be recognized by the chairman to speak at one time. At the conclusion of public comments, the chairman will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or postpone the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant has the right to appeal the board's decision to Oakland County Circuit Court.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Agawas. Okay, so I want to introduce everybody up here on the dais and even in the audience over here that are going to be participating in tonight's meeting, for people watching at home or that are in the audience. So this is Mr. McCauley over to my far left, your far right. Mr. Green, who actually, Mr. Green is an alternate to this board, but tonight he'll be sitting as a full voting member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is Vice Chairman Agawas. I'm Glenn Clark. I'm the chairman of the board. Mr. Eisenbacher is a member of the board as well. And then we have some supporting folks. So this is Mr. Evans over here. He is with the city administration, so he serves us in administrative capacity to support the board. And then there's Mr. Motsney over here in the far left of the chamber in the front row, and he is an assistant city attorney with the city attorney's office here. He'll be serving as our legal advisor for these proceedings. So having said all of that, we move on to item number 3, which are the approval of minutes related to February 18. Somebody want to make a comment? Mr. Eisenbacher.
I will move the minutes as presented for approval. Second.
Moved by Eisenbacher Green for approval of item number 3. Any discussion by a member of the board? See none, I believe we're prepared for a vote. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Gauss,
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes. So that passes. We have the item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there any concerns or comments about the agenda? So that's set. And so we move right into item 5A. It's a variance request for Nicholas and Julie Santini related to 3539 Salem. Mr. Evans, can you please present to us on this?
Thank you. And just before I do, Mr. McCauley, do you have a working microphone?
I think so.
You do. Okay. I can't see it from here and just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Okay.
I don't want to touch it.
Yeah,
As the chair indicated, this variance request is for property at 3539 Salem. Now, this is an aerial of the neighborhood, and Salem is outlined in the colors. It's in a residential area north of Big Beaver and west of Coolidge Highway. And with this aerial, I've zoomed in closer. As you can see, the subject property is surrounded by other single-family residences, and everything you see in the picture is zoned single-family residential. Now, the subject matter involves the parking of a commercial vehicle, in this case a school bus, on residential property. This matter came to the attention of the city via a complaint, and because it's in the zoning ordinance, the homeowner does have the option to request relief from the zoning board to have a commercial vehicle on the property that is not an allowed type of commercial vehicle. The zoning ordinance does allow 2 types of commercial vehicles to be stored or parked in residential areas, and you're only allowed one of them, but you can pick it. It's either a cargo passenger van or a pickup truck. So they're asking for a variance to park and have this vehicle in the rear section of the existing driveway. I've pointed it out there on the aerial, and that's indicative of how it looks from just in from the street. And that is their site plan also showing where it's going to be. So in order to keep that there, they need relief from this board. So I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
thank you, Mr. Evans. Any questions of city administration or our legal advisor, Mr. Green?
Yes. I have already struggled with this a little bit insofar as I am wondering about the decision of the prior board.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sorry, absolutely. So I wonder about not whether this has come to us, but how it made it to us. By the definition in our ordinance, a commercial passenger cargo style van is an enclosed truck manufactured with unified body permitting unobstructed passenger movement throughout, which this vehicle does and is. By definition, under our zoning ordinance, this, to me, qualifies as a passenger-style van and fits within our ordinance as an allowed vehicle.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, respectfully, staff doesn't see it that way. Our enforcers and inspectors are out in the field all the time seeing these kinds of things, whether it's responding to complaints or seeing them. And we believe that we don't believe that a school bus was intended to be included. There could be all kinds of different size school buses or other types of similar bus-style vehicles that may not be school buses. So we would like the comfort level that if the board sees it fit to either grant some relief or perhaps make an interpretation, we would rather have that comfort level to help justify moving forward with future administration and enforcement of the ordinance.
Mr. Green, can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
I had a hard time hearing towards the beginning of your comment, and I'm not playing microphone, maybe I just missed it. Did you say position or division? You probably don't even remember.
I think it was fairly early in the question. It was how did we end up in this position
Okay.
possibly?
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes, I think this is the first time that an item has come to us that is not actually attached to the ground. It's not it's not attached to the land. Which means it can be put in a slightly different position every time it's parked. And typically we're dealing with dimensional issues. Would we be specifying a location where it would be acceptable to park a vehicle on the property?
Well, if the board was comfortable in granting some relief, it is feasible to attach conditions to a grant. However, those conditions would have to be closely related to the subject matter.
Okay, that ties directly into my second question, which is back before the zoning ordinance was rewritten, back when commercial vehicles used to be decided by the city council, there used to be at times stipulations to make sure that the neighbors couldn't see the vehicle, basically shrubbery, block. Would those options be available to this board as part of our purview? I mean, this is where I'm struggling a little bit because it's a movable object. It's not a fixed garage, not a fixed house. Or not, yeah.
This board imposes reasonable conditions in the granting of any variance. So as long as the conditions deemed reasonable, the board has the power to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. McCauley.
What Mr. Green said I agree with, but the part that I believe that he's missing is the commercial vehicle, any vehicle used to generate income, and which by appearance is anything other than a usual and customary personal family transportation. I don't feel that that's the loophole right there, in a sense, because if somebody had a pickup truck that they had their insignia on the side and they could pull their insignia off the side of the truck and it looks like just a normal gray pickup truck parked in their driveway, then who knows? But I think the key element that we're missing there is the commercial vehicle definition to this whole
I will hold further comment on that, sorry, until
Thank you, Mr.
later.
McCauley. Mr. Green, would you like to be recognized?
I apologize. I have a response that I will hold until we get further into the discussion because I
Okay.
do wish to discuss it.
Sure, please remind me. Anyone else from the board? Okay, we're going to call the petitioner up. Hello. Are you Julie?
Yes.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank
Please
you.
take it away.
Can I address what I read that you gave me from my
I would
neighbors?
probably
before?
recommend first you tell us why you're asking for the variance, and
Okay.
then switch it up and then go to those.
Well, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. You are on television right now.
I know. Thank you for that.
Not many people.
In detail, I did fill out whatever those, whatever you call those, reasons why it would be.
Yes, they're in our packet.
Yes. So it was, I thought I put it in a lot of detail. I just got this job in November. The first I heard about a complaint, I think was January, so I really kind of thought I was going to be home free, that nobody was going to say anything. And basically, the problem with having the bus in my yard, when I first pulled it in, I actually even thought, this looks ridiculous, you know, but I got used to it. And the way Detroit Country Day School works is they've got 10 small buses like I drive. Everyone takes them home because logistically, it just helps work out the time frame of picking up students and taking them home. My day starts at 5:30, my work day. If I was to go pick that bus up every morning, it's 31 minutes to the bus yard. And from the bus yard, it's 48 minutes to my first pickup, which is in Oakland Township. And then I would have to take it back another, 30 minutes after I drop them off at the school, and then back to pick up the bus, and then take them all home. So that would probably add close to probably 3 more hours to my day. And my day starts at 5:30. I have a break in the middle, but I'm usually home about 7 at night. So it's a long day. My issue is, and I have been trying to see if I can figure out how to change the parking situation to, help. And I was told by the police department that I can park that commercial vehicle during the day on my property. So the only time that bus is there is in the dark right now. And in the school year, it would not be there at all. When school ends, the bus would be gone. So my issue is, since this is a new job for me, and I really would like to keep this job because I like this job. I worked for Troy School District for 5 years before I got this job. And the pay is good, they treat me well. I have insurance, for the first time in 8 years. And I'm old. I'm not gonna get a job this good somewhere else. I mean, it's just not gonna happen. I can't prove ageist, but it's there. That would pay what it's paying me, because it's paying well. So I really would like to keep this job. I'm very courteous about, I let everybody pass. I'm actually right on the school route. The big buses from Troy are, passing my house constantly for school. Schroeder's right there. And the only time you hear the beep, beep, beep would be, I get home about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I back it up about, at the latest, 7 at night. And there's a lot of times where my husband doesn't even hear it. He doesn't even know I'm home. It's not loud. It's unleaded fuel, so it's not noisy. It's not air brake. It's not fuel, it doesn't smell. It's like a SUV. I don't know if we want to get it. I don't know if there's any questions that you're going to ask me, or.
Why don't you just proceed to your comments about the commentary, and then we'll ask questions.
Well, in front of me I have, I was walking around my neighborhood a couple weekends ago when it was nice out, and out of 14 houses, 12 signed, and thought it was really kind of unusual, didn't understand the problem. 2 did not want to sign, which brings me to that one letter. She's wrong. She was one of the ones that didn't want to sign, and the other one that sent the letter was the other house. So out of 14, those 2, not 3, denied me. And I didn't really even get to have about 5 or 6 more neighbors that I wanted to have signed, which I had their support. And once they all had the notices sent to them, the support even grew. I had people coming and telling me they'd show up. Do you need me to be there? And under the circumstances with Corona stuff, it's no. And I didn't want to, this 1 or 2 complaints to put everybody out. It just seems silly. I figured the signatures would be fine. They're all on board. Both my neighbors next to me are new families with babies. The one across the street, new family, and they have no issues, and they have infants. So it doesn't bother them, and those were the first I talked to even before I had this issue, even before I, parked the bus. So I just wanted to point out that she was wrong about 3 neighbors because she wanted to be here, but she had some, not even sure that went either. It was out of town. She was getting an award for something, so I'm not even sure if that even went. But I would like you to read her letter. I've got copies.
On the video, it'll be on the video record of the meeting, so please proceed.
And this neighbor lives 3 doors down from me. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals members, Julie and Nicholas Santini, who live at 3539 Salem Road in Troy, have a request for a variance to park a small Detroit Country Day school bus at the back of their driveway. I'm writing in support of the request. Julie Santini works for the Detroit Country Day School located at 22305 West 13 Mile Road, Beverly Hills. She is responsible for picking up and dropping students at their homes twice each day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, 5 days a week. Detroit Country Day allows her to keep the bus at her home each night. Her current route from her home to pick up the students, drop them at school, and return back home takes 8 hours each day. If she were not allowed to keep the bus in her driveway, she would have to drive to the bus parking facility located on 9.5 and Telegraph twice per day to start her route. This process would add an additional 62 minutes round trip, plus an additional 96 minutes to arrive to her first student pickup in Oakland Township, which is round trip. I understand that at least one person in our neighborhood had complained about the bus in her driveway. Frankly, my family and I have no problem with it at all. Julie parks the bus at the very end of the driveway, which is approximately at the center of the north side of her property. While it is visible from the street, it is a relatively small vehicle and neatly parked. Moreover, the bus causes no congestion, unlike the congestion our neighborhood sees twice each day with the arrival of numerous school buses at Schroeder Elementary, located just behind the Santini property. I believe that if the variance were denied, Julie likely would have to give up her job, the extra time added to her route, and the additional miles on her own vehicle would not be cost effective. I'm hopeful that the Zoning Board of Appeals will consider its decision and allow the variance. I know it would mean a lot to the Santinis and be a great help to them financially. Best regards, Elizabeth K. Brody, PhD.
Thank you.
And I just have to tell you, when you sent all these notices out, I had the support. I mean, it just was touching. The people in my neighborhood are just amazing, and I just kind of wanted to say that. I was surprised at some of the support.
Great.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Any questions for this petitioner?
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes. Could you give us the address numbers for the neighbors that signed your petition?
Oh, I sure can. If you want to just make copies, I
You have a
have
copy of the petition?
12 different.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
I think it would be suitable for the applicant to provide us, the board, a copy of the petition as well as a copy of the signed letter. If due to distancing, we may not want to physically view it, perhaps the applicant could testify to it and then leave it on the dais and we could pick it up later, just so we can get it in the record.
Yes, on my petition, I have their address, their names, and then their signatures.
Okay, yeah, if you could just read through the address and street slowly, and we could look on the map and see where they are relative.
Okay. First, 2349 Kristen Drive. You just want the addresses, right?
You could say the names too.
That would be the Stromberg family. 2201 Kristen. That is the Sevier family. 3556 Salem, which is across the street, the Hughes family. 3572 Salem, the Zhang family. 3603 Salem, the Buckhus family. 3555 Salem, the Tennant family. 3544 Eastbourne, the Vanderwerp family, that's behind my house. 3587 Salem, the Robinson family, which is the red letter came from. 3540 Salem, the LaRocca family. 3523 Salem, the Harity family. And 3523 Salem, oh, the Harity, they both signed different lines, both parts of the family.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for this petitioner? Mr. Green.
This may be a clarification. Did I miss, sorry, 3528 Eastbourne?
I wasn't able to get other than one signature on Eastbourne.
You got
Between the weather and then this, I thought this last weekend I could finish up. I just didn't want to, knock on any doors under the circumstances, so.
So would I be correct in saying that essentially every bordering neighbor of yours except for 3528 due to restrictions.
Basically, well, it would be both. The one right behind me did sign.
Yes.
The one on either side either weren't home when I tried the first time around, which was probably, I think, a Super Bowl. It was a nice weekend. And then I just never I wasn't able to get back there. So the one directly behind me, but the ones on either side of the ones directly, which I kind of thought might have been important, but.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question.
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Do you have an active homeowners association?
No,
No, okay. So you're not aware of any homeowners bylaws that you'd be violating either then?
no
No, okay.
homeowners. We've been there 26 years,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Any other member of the board? Okay, if you can have a seat, thank you.
And I'll leave this here?
Please.
Vice Chairman Agawas is going to give us an update on communications that we had on this issue.
Well, I have 3 letters or emails here. One is from a, quote, concerned neighbor, but I'm not able to know if that concerned neighbor is in the direct neighborhood or not, but they are against the variance. The 2 that in the neighborhood against the variance, one is from 233 Kristen, which is about 3 houses to the east, and then 3588 Salem, which is 3 or 4 neighbors up the street to the north. I guess in summary, both of those neighbors had concerns that the bus wasn't quiet. There's a loud reverse alarm on it, according to what they're writing here, that the bus is in view from more than a block away. They're also concerned that this is based on personal needs as opposed to the property, and it may set a precedent in other areas of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay, I'll bring this back to the board table. We're going to open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the board on this matter, please step to the podium and speak at the microphone. Second call for public comments at the podium. Last call. We're going to close out the public hearing, bring it back to the board table for further discussion and/or possible action. Would anyone like to be recognized?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Green.
So I would like to come back to comments made earlier. There was a question by Board Member McCauley about, or rather, he referenced a piece of the ordinance that covers the whole of commercial vehicles as defined. Thank you. Any vehicle used to generate income, etc. But that is the parent definition to the 2 subordinate ones, the 2 child definitions of pickup truck, passenger, cargo style van. And to my mind, while I fully agree that a school bus does not masquerade as anything customary or personal transit in nature, it does still fit within the subsidiary definition of a vehicle, commercial vehicle, passenger, cargo style van. And so my issue here is not necessarily that I think this is precisely as intended, but that I believe that the ordinance needs explicit clarification and recategorization. I have been looking through for any alternate qualifier categorization. The closest that I could come would be a couple of points where it talks about storage, the ordinance, where it discusses recreational vehicles or vehicles of a similar nature, and it does not define similar nature, at least in those sections, and it talks about storage of no more than 48 hours unless it's within an enclosed shed that is X number of feet from the border of the property, or rather from the edges of other property. That would be the closest that I could come to otherwise defining this out beyond what is here. And in fairness to the realities of the situation and not wanting school buses all over, like full-size school buses or anything like it all over Troy City property, and yet not wanting to unduly exclude various things such as 15-passenger vans. This is smaller than a 15-passenger cargo van, which is permitted within the ordinance. I suggest that we consider a motion to table this and recommend to the Planning Commission a revision or request clarification from them, and I suppose subsequent approval by the City Council before full consideration of this matter, so that we can rule on this fairly based both on the ordinance and the petitioner and future considerations. I know that was a lot, but I'm suggesting it. I'm not proposing it. I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts.
Well, here's a former member of the City Council who wants to be recognized. I'm going to just jump in here real quick and then kick it over to Mr. Eisenbacher. I would say that is a steep climb to go through the Planning Commission, to go through City Council, and they may not choose to take it up. So, or the petitioner could do the same thing and not the ZBA to formally request this of those two other bodies that we have no control over. So I think that would be probably the more appropriate measure to take if somebody, I mean, I've said it before many times to petitioners, you know, if you don't like the zoning, you have your methodology and you go to City Council and then you make your request to them and they're going to do whatever they want with that football, you know. But that's the appropriate measure, and those are the people's elected representatives. So I don't know. I understand what you're trying to say and do. I just that possibly could take well over half a year or 3/4 of a year, maybe even longer. I'm not really sure. But Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yeah, Mr. Green brought up a couple good points. I do believe it's our job. Part of our job as the ZBA to interpret the zoning ordinance. We are the official interpreters. And I'm seeing the same thing with the commercial vehicle cargo style van as what Mr. Green just mentioned, because part of that definition with the movement throughout the cab and basically the cab and the body is that you can't have a cab with a box and no passageway in between. That clearly violates the commercial vehicle cargo style van, but now we're drawing the line between like an E150 Econoline van, GMC Savannah, the Sierra, the Ram vans, the Transit vans, all these different vans, and the one that's in front of us is not substantially different from a commercial, like, transit van that would have, like you mentioned, seating for 14 or 16 people. This isn't the Partridge Family van from when, dating myself, from when I was little, where they were driving a full-size van. And I also see there are some large families. It's not outlandish, it's not unusual to have 10 kids. My brother has 9. If it wasn't yellow and it didn't say the school district on it, would it be appropriate for a neighborhood? The definition doesn't say anything about the length of the vehicle, doesn't say anything about the color of the vehicle. I'm struggling with the definition of what we're trying to interpret. I'll yield.
Thank you. Mr. McGauley.
I understand what you're saying, and in my expertise in having been involved in schools for a number of years. I have seen large families that do have large vans. But I look at the zoning ordinance and it stands out very clear to me that to generate income versus a large family van, there's a difference. Generate that, it's not usual and customary for personal transportation of a family transportation. It's there for generate income. It does not look like a personal vehicle at all, like some of these larger econo vans or something like that. All the markings of that is clearly not for personal use. So if I look at that piece alone and take away the commercial vehicle cargo style van or the pickup truck, it's clearly above and beyond. That first one just, to me, tells me that this application is of a personal nature, which the applicant has stated. It does not have anything to do with the property. It has everything to do with location and income and travel time and all personal nature. So it has nothing to do with the property. In my mind, this makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. So that's my opinion. I mean, I'm not questioning it. I'm pretty solid on what I think about it. So.
Thank you. Any other member of the board? Would somebody like to propose a motion? It always comes down to Mr. McCauley.
I make the motion that we deny the application for the parking of a commercial vehicle in a residential area because due to our standards of practical difficulty, there is no exceptional characteristics of the property for this parking there. It does not fit. The characteristic waste compliance of dimensional requirements there, again, does not fit. It is of a personal it is of a personal use, and so it does not fit that. The characteristics, this is created by the current homeowner, and also that it does alter the essential area of that, because all of a sudden if you start letting other commercial vehicles come in there, it will alter the area which the property is located.
Could you please reference the address? Because you didn't reference the petitioner's name or the address.
Yep. Okay, my apologies.
That's okay.
So I asked for a template. That's an old one. Hold on.
3539 Salem.
Okay. I make the motion to deny the request for 3539 Salem.
Okay, that's moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Agawas, Vice Chairman Agawas seconds. So that's now our active motion in front of the board. Is there any discussion on the motion? McCauley Agawas motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Green.
I did just take a quick look, and based on the photos provided by the petitioner and a brief and cursory search, what I find is that there are broadly 4 school bus configurations, one of which is Type A, the smaller bus configuration. Another one of them, and it's relevant, is Type D. That's your usual full-size, flat-fronted, sort of Greyhoundy looking bus, although it can be yellow. The Type D bus is sometimes considered to be a single body manufacturer. And that is a key point because the ordinance specifies unified body at manufacture. The Type A bus, the smaller bus, says that it is traditionally a bus body placed on a cutaway van chassis with a left side driver's door. That would mean that it is a 2-piece manufacture, which goes contrary to what I had previously found, if I am understanding this correctly. If I am not, then my original point stands, but I can't confirm that. To that end, I am now at a loss.
All right. Any other member of the board? Mr. Vice Chairman Nogales.
Well, as far as discussion about the motion brought by Mr. McCauley, seconded by myself, that's really under the assumption that the bus doesn't fit the intent or definition of what a passenger cargo style van would be. If we're wrong on that assumption or interpretation definition, then it doesn't even need to be here. There's no problem, and they should be able to park their bus on property. But I guess the fundamental thing is, figuring out the definition. If a bus is not part of this ordinance, is not part of a passenger cargo style van, then that's why I struggle, like Mr. McCauley, to try to fit it into the statement of practical difficulty, being that it was in personal nature, that there wasn't exceptional characteristics of the property, et cetera. Thank you.
I don't know, I'll just make a quick comment, very quick. I'm really appreciative of our school bus drivers who keep the kids really safe. 'Cause I almost got killed getting off of a school bus when I was a kid. The school bus driver acted rapidly, and I'm here today because of it. So I certainly appreciate anyone who takes care of our children. But I am concerned about, okay, well, it's kind of the camel and the nose in the tent, right? You let the camel poke their nose in the tent, pretty soon you have uncalled for consequences. So what about the next size up school bus? Then somebody else has an important job, taking care of the kids and keeping them safe and needing that income. I mean, the zoning board, it's just, we have to look for practical difficulties that run with the land. And I don't see how anything related to that bus runs with the land. It's not that the house is on a steep decline and, someone's trying to add on an addition. It's not that it's irregularly shaped. So I just have a hard time seeing this. And, once again, I enjoyed the petitioner's comments to us, and it seems like she has a very good heart. But, at the end of the day, what is the practical difficulty with the land? And I really can't reconcile that. Anyone else? Mr. Green.
Clearly, I'm waffling upon further research. The fact that it is not initially made that way is less important because the way that the buses are put together is commonly known as second stage manufacture. And as such, it is manufactured as a single piece, which is, again, to the definition. So I return to my original view. As was noted by Mr. Eisenbacher, our purpose is to interpret. That's what we do. And that was why I put forward my suggestion earlier, proposal, because I believe personally that this ordinance needs clarification on that point. However, we have what we have in front of us, and we are not here to dictate what council nor planning commission are to do. As such, by this definition, I believe that this vehicle qualifies as an acceptable and permissible vehicle. That said, it is before us because that was not the decision by the previous body. Therefore, I believe that while I would agree this does not fulfill all of the practical difficulties, it does fulfill point E. The petitioner was clear in her notes that the bus is practically out of sight and you can only see it directly in front of the house, which was part of why I asked the question that I did. You may be able to see it from the backyard, possibly the neighbors, but all bordering neighbors other than, I believe it was 3528, it might have been 5328, the one just, I believe, south of the petitioner's property, have signed on to the letter saying that they're fine with it. That would be all parties with visibility on it. Other acceptable, permissible vehicles also have the beeping that is at least likely to be the largest issue as presented by the initial complainant to the zoning enforcement. So to me, this does not alter the essential characteristics. It is not harmful to the character. It does not impair the light, particularly of the adjacent property. It does not unreasonably increase, as noted, particularly specifically based on the times that she is going to be driving this vehicle, the congestion in the area, nor does it increase the danger of fire or public safety, or unreasonably diminish or impair established property value with surrounding areas. I do not believe that this fulfills D. This is to some degree of the current owner's making, although an argument could be made that it is actually her employer's, not hers, as DCD schools requires the drivers to take the buses home. The point C, characteristics which make compliance with the dimensional requirements, it is of a personal nature. It is her personal employment, I would agree. B, characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult must be related to the premises, not insofar as it refers to the land. I do not believe that falls under this, although, and I do not think that there is a zoning classification right now, any district right now within the residential sphere that she would be otherwise able to park this vehicle were it more clearly defined. And certainly, this is not an exceptional characteristic of the property. That was made clear by the petitioner, that she actually has an extra wide driveway that makes this more possible, the parking of it. So while it does not fulfill A, B, or C, I do believe there's a case to be made for D, and it does fulfill E. And that is as many of the characteristics below as possible. And as such, is there a motion on the floor at the moment?
Yes. For denial.
I would suggest that I'm going to vote no, and I would like to, subsequent to, should it succeed, should it fail this motion, I will want to put forward a motion to approve. To approve.
Okay. Mr. McCauley.
I'm looking at this at a bigger scope. I don't know if we're just focused on the fact that it's a bus. I'm going to use this as an example because I think this is important to understand this, that if I look at the definitions of this, the first one, is this vehicle used to generate income? Yes. Does it by appearance look unusual compared to a customary personal family transportation? Yes. And I'm going to use this. All of a sudden now we say, yeah, that's okay, because it sits back in the yard a little bit. The one picture is kind of maybe in front of the house next to it, maybe not. It's just the angle of the camera. But the bottom line is, if I look at this, then the guy with the cargo van that has the bright green, whatever commercial vehicle he is, and now can park that because it fits the cargo van. Now we're going to have all these commercial vehicles parked in front of the house, parked alongside the house, and that's not the intent of the ordinance. The ordinance is to keep our subdivisions, keep our neighborhoods free of commercial vehicles. So does that generate income? Yes. Does it by appearance look like something different than a usual customary family vehicle? Yes. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the number of small business owners in Troy that would love to see this go away so they can park their fertilization equipment, tree equipment, lawn service equipment, plumbing equipment, HVAC equipment, all their trucks in front of their houses to be in plain view. They're waiting for this. And to me, as one of those small business owners, I disagree with it. I don't want my neighborhood riddled with that. I don't want my neighborhood to look like that. I want to keep the integrity of my neighborhood the way it is. So from that standpoint, that's why I disagree respectfully with Mr. Green's opinion that this fits two of the practical difficulties. I don't believe it fits any of the practical difficulties.
Thank you. Any other member? Mr. Eisenbacher?
I don't believe that the matter of a zoning variance is appropriate for this. I believe it's a definitional thing. I don't think using our criteria for whether or not this is a commercial vehicle is the correct approach. I plan to vote no on the resolution because the resolution and our criteria are set up for things that are fixed. What we're grappling with is the definition, first of commercial vehicle, and then the two exceptions to what's a commercial vehicle. The strict definition, the original strict definition of a commercial vehicle is every pickup, every van that's in the city of Troy, and everything bigger than a pickup or a van. But then they had two exceptions for pickups and vans. And then there's definitions for what the exception for one pickup or one van is. And the question before us, I believe that's more appropriate for us to answer is this van fall under the definition of commercial vehicle for a passenger cargo style van? That's what we should be arguing and putting a resolution about, not all the dimensional criteria that we have for additions and for setbacks and for fixed objects on the land.
Thank you. Anyway, let's keep it a little bit brief.
Do my best. I concur. That was why I brought my original question prior to our fully undertaking consideration of this matter. I agree with Mr. Eisenbacher. I also understand wholly and agree with Mr. McCauley and you, Chairman. You did both say, and you referred to the, so camel poking its nose in the tent. I have 3 neighbors, immediate neighbors, all of whom have commercial businesses, and 2 of whom have vehicles which currently qualify as exceptions. The single vehicle, commercial vehicle exception, one's an extended pickup and one is a cargo van or a passenger van. And in one case, I know for a fact that there would be more vehicles should this get relaxed, released, reinterpreted. However, our job is to interpret it as it stands before us today. I agree, I was struggling with the requirements. There are a couple of points there which I do stand by, but which I agree are less germane to this than, strictly speaking, the language of the ordinance as it stands. And for that reason, I will continue to vote no, but then am very much willing to consider alternative angles for us to go at this. But if this does end up before us with a vote to approve, I will have in my mind no choice but to vote yes, because it currently does not to allow the variance, because currently it doesn't even qualify to my mind in a place where it requires a variance. This I will reiterate, although it is nothing that we can act on, this difficulty and the floodgates themselves, whatever our actions are tonight, need to be closed by the Planning Commission and Council. Not, to my mind, not by us.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? I think we're ready for a vote, Mr. Evans.
Okay, and just for everybody.
Just to clarify, a yes vote is to deny the petitioner's request. A no vote just kills the motion. So it brings it back to the board table. Vice Chairman Agawas.
Sorry, I don't want to drag this out any more than we have to, but I want to be especially sensitive to what Mr. Eisenbacher is thinking, because he's probably the only one here with direct experience with being on city council before and how to, interpret and view, a non-fixed object on, with a variance request. So, I mean, as it stands right now, if we're going through our statement of practical difficulty, I think it should fail. That's why I seconded the motion. But this is a broad question maybe to Mr. Eisenbach or the chair or, legal counsel, Mr. Evans. Are we boxed into those 5 criteria for the practical difficulty? Can we vote on that and then move on to interpreting the definition? I mean, how much latitude do we have here? Yeah.
Sure. Motsney.
The job tonight is to vote on the variance based on the 5 criteria. An interpretation is something this board can do, but that's not before the board. That would be a separate application for an interpretation. Another possibility, as Mr. Green indicated, is a text amendment, but again, that's a whole different process this board has nothing to do with. So right now, the board needs to vote on the variance request applying the 5 criteria. So, and we're not here for an interpretation tonight.
That answers it perfectly. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Oh, goodness, Mr. Eisenbach.
Okay, this is a nuts and bolts follow-up. So the application for a definition, because I agree that the vehicle doesn't pass our criteria because the criteria are for fixed objects. If we want to get a if the petitioner wanted a definition clarification of whether or not their vehicle violates the commercial vehicle, what would be the process? Is it the same application but you check another box, or is it?
Yes, we would use the same application. They would simply enumerate that they're requesting an interpretation.
So they'd have to restart the whole process over again?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, there's no choice.
We're prepared for a vote, Mr. Evans. Yes is rejecting the petitioner's request. No is killing the amendment or the motion, which brings it back to the board table.
All right, so this is a motion to deny.
yeah.
Mr. Green.
No.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
No.
Mr. McCauley.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Gauss.
Yes.
So 3 have cast votes in favor of the motion and 2 with the no votes, and we require 4 votes. So the motion fails. We bring it back to Mr. Motz.
You only need a simple majority to deny a variance. You need 4 votes always to grant a variance, but a motion to deny can be passed on a simple majority.
I've only been on this board for like 15
so the
years.
variance
No one's
is,
ever told me that.
so the variance has been denied.
Okay, thank you. So the petitioner's request has been denied, according to our legal counsel. Okay, we move right along to item number 6, which are communications. Mr. Evans, anything?
No communications.
And item number 7, I think we have one item, maybe there's more. Let's start with Mr. Evans, Mr. McCauley, if you will. Is there anything else besides Mr. McCauley's?
Just Mr. McCauley.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, so if you're member of the board, Mr. McCauley, this will be in the record, sent an email. He had some thoughts about moving forward as a zoning board. So I'm going to let Mr. McCauley give us the bullet points of your thoughts about kind of reorganizing a little bit.
Basically, I attended the Michigan Planning Association training in January, and one of the discussions that came up, I liked the idea of it because I like information. I like to see how things go. There's some cities that have created an annual report for their ZBA that gives them feedback to previous year zoning board applications as far as what people have applied for, what zoning has, what is we've denied, what we've said yes to, just a lot of statistical data to look at and see what comes in front of us. Because what that did for them was, wait a minute, we're seeing a lot of these rear yard setbacks for houses. Why? And at that point in time, they were able to look at that and get that back to their city council and amend their zoning ordinances to help meet the needs of their community more. So if we're continually getting the same zoning ordinance over and over again and we're denying it because of our ordinances, is it something that's in our ordinance that's fixable that we can do? So that's one of the things, is just creating a database of information so we can look at what we're doing to help better guide our city council and our planning commission for doing the other things. That's one item, to see if that's of interest to us. The other item that I have is that one of the exercises they had there is they gave scenarios of different types of requests for zoning ordinances and gave you a map and gave you the setbacks and everything else for things, and basically it opened up discussion to how we would interpret that. So what it does, as a group, then we can sit there and look at this and pick it apart, talk about it, and not have to worry about being in quorum or not in quorum over something that we've discussed, that this is a hypothetical and we're looking at it as training for us in order to help us better look at our ordinances and to apply them appropriately underneath our practical difficulties. So it's something that, as an example, we would give one out. We know we have a light agenda this month. Let's hand one of these out at the end of our meeting. We sit and we talk about it, and then we kind of mull it over as one that, as if we had one, to get an idea how we would look at this, how we would interpret it, and that type of stuff. So it's more of a learning for the board. I've been on the board now, I believe this is the start of my 3rd year, and I feel I'm still learning a lot every time. And I look at this as the more that I hear, the more that I see, the better educated I am, the better I'm prepared to make decisions. So I look at this as an opportunity with a lot of new members on the board, especially the last month sitting there. I think it was Mr. Eisenbacher, then Mr. Desmond and myself. All of a sudden now I'm like moving up the totem pole in seniority, and I feel very inexperienced still at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. I spoke to you before the meeting started about this, and I think there's a lot of good stuff here. But I just have a question for Mr. Motzney, and that is, if you're looking at Mr. McCauley's email, the first bullet point, last line, where it talks about, and I'm just a little concerned here about litigation. So it says, this could include approved and denied appeals, that's fine. Type of, this is where I'm going, type of appeals approved and denied, and possible reasons for each. So, you know, we're now being watched by cameras. Everything we say and do during a meeting can be watched much later, even years later, I imagine. And, but if we end up creating some document or some computer program or something, and start putting reasons why, meaning someone's going to interpret what this board did, would that be a possible issue with some litigation regarding if a petitioner disagrees with us on the outcome?
Well, one of the things this board can and should do is report to the planning commission based on if there's, for instance, if you see the same variance request over and over and over again, this board should report on that so that, to give the planning commission an opportunity to maybe amend the ordinance if necessary. And I think if you look at that, look at it in that way, I think what is being proposed is acceptable. Yes, you have to be careful that you base any reports on the facts as taken from the minutes or from the meeting. If you start adding additional interpretations in there, yeah, that could cause a problem. But if it's carefully reviewed and presented, I don't think there's a problem. Does that answer your question? Or?
Who would be doing the reviewing?
Could be city administration.
Our administrator.
Well, I mean, what I guess, how I've interpreted things over all the years I've been here is if my colleagues and I, or a majority of the colleagues, want to send a message to planning or even to city council or both, you just pass a resolution.
That's one way, correct? Yeah.
And you just have to get, majority of the members of the board, and boom, it goes to the appropriate authorities. I'm just a little bit concerned, but if Mr. Evans would be in charge, I trust it a lot more.
The thing is too, and to help clarify, Mr. Clark, to help you out that, and I see exactly your point, and I agree with you, that the possible reasonings for each, I would eliminate that. I just want data, just hard data. And that's what Mr. Evans would be producing for us, just hard data. And it might be information that we can use as communication with the Planning Commission and the City Council.
Sure.
So, and like something like that.
Yeah, I think to Mr. Motze's points.
That.
Well, I believe
We can show that to the Planning Commission, here's all these variances in the same category, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the planning commissioners are going to say, wow,
Mr. Clark.
yes, yep,
I believe Mr. Evans has a comment.
yes.
Mr. Clark, if I could, I recall, now this was after I talked to Mr. McCauley, and he sent his email. I recall we did this one time. I believe it was near the beginning of 2018. And so the board asked me to do this for a year-long period. And I can show you what we've done in the past. And I can say what it didn't include were the reasons for the decisions on the variance. But just using the spreadsheet that I have up here, we indicate the date of the meeting, the address, the request right out of the agenda. The disposition, was it granted or denied, or one of these was withdrawn. What else does it say there now? The zoning, the zoning or the use of the property, and what type of variance is it. But this is an idea of what we've done in the past, and this is something, perhaps, how many requests throughout the year, how many were granted, and I'd be happy to share this with the board for the next meeting for additional discussion.
Sure.
But I just wanted to give everybody an idea of what we've done in the past that may, if the board chooses to go this route, serve as kind of a template.
Yeah, that looks, in my opinion, that looks really great. Mr. McCauley, I think these are great ideas. I'm just concerned about anything that goes into a report like that can be subpoenaed in a court of law, and someone could make hay out of it.
I agree, and that's why I said the rationale behind
Yeah,
why they're,
right.
get rid of it. If I look at that template right there, and that would serve its purpose real quick, because they could draw data from that to be able to look at potentially, altering future ordinances. Also, I'm going to bring up the third item that was on there, I believe it was on there, or I brought up to Mr. Evans, was I struggle with making motions personally, and I struggle with the verbiage for them to properly make them, as I did tonight. I asked him if they could develop a template for a motion to approve and deny, and that way it gives us a template for sitting up here and doing that, because the last meeting with Mr. Eisenbacher filling in for you as the chair, everybody looked at everybody else waiting for somebody to make a motion to approve or deny, and I felt like I was the only one that was really comfortable doing that. So because we're not comfortable doing that yet because of just our overall persona of being new to the board and how to do it properly. So what I'm hoping to do is not just for myself, but to help train future planning commission or zoning board members a way to be able to properly submit a motion for denial or acceptance. So I think that would help. So just kind of, like I say, it makes us a better functioning board.
Yet another thing for Mr. Evans to do.
Yes, well, I did agree with Mr. McCauley's. We do use those for other boards and commissions in Troy, and I serve on my local community's Board of Appeals, and we also use them. I do believe it's a great idea. I believe it's best practice. I've come up with a draft that's very similar to the ones we use for other boards and commissions in Troy. It's just zoning board specific. So if the board is comfortable with either what I'm showing tonight, or perhaps I can include copies for the next agenda, if the board wants to, if this is the direction the board might want to go in.
Yeah, let's do that.
You want to do that? Put them in for the next one?
Yeah, so we can kind of chew on it.
I won't
Okay.
be here at the next meeting.
Darn it.
Sorry, man, I gotta go on vacation.
Taking-
But I'm,
Are you taking a cruise ship?
yes, I'm
Okay.
renting a whole one. Also, the thing with this is that I've seen in other cities that they've given like a recommended approval or denial to a motion, and they just give one. I don't want that listed on there. I don't want that listed on our agenda packet, where they're guiding us. I want us to make our own decisions. So I want this to have one for approval and one for denial, and however we decide to go with it, that we have both options. I don't want just one option written on an agenda for us.
Can we, would the board be amenable to put this on 2 agendas from now? So Mr. McCauley can be back and participate in the discussion? Okay, we'll make that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other miscellaneous business? Mr. Green?
In the same spirit, I suppose sans reasoning, but simply broadly, I feel that while we may not have seen many variances or variance requests on this topic, I move that we report to the Planning Commission that we found a potential area of concern in the ordinance that merits review by them. Beyond that, we of course have no say, no standing, no anything, but I feel this merits a report.
You have to be more specific, because there's a report going then to them
So
about what?
I
Price of oil or
Fair
what?
enough.
Yeah.
I revise the motion. I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals report to the Planning Commission that at the meeting today, Tuesday, March 17th, we encountered a difficulty with interpreting the language of the ordinance, specifically the language surrounding commercial vehicles and the 2 subcategorizations of commercial vehicles which qualify for single exceptions, and ask that they review it.
To tighten the language.
Okay.
Yeah,
Second.
Second.
McCauley seconds.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
I agree, because I think that when this was written, it's not updated with the changing of the vehicles that we have today compared to the vehicles we had 15 years ago, 10 years ago even. You're seeing more of the vehicles out there, more of the cargo vans, and yes, I think it needs to be updated.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes,
Mr. Agawas.
Yes.
motion passes. Any other business? Seeing none, we move on to public comment. If you'd like to address the board on any matter that may have been on the agenda or may not have been on the agenda, or any other, yes,
Sorry, you moved pretty quickly there. Second motion. I move that given the current state of emergency in the city, county, state, nation, and globe, that we, at this time, officially cancel the April meeting of the ZBA should one have been merited, and move any and all agenda items from the April meeting to May pending further review at that time.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
The issue is, the
Can I
big
just-
issue,
Can I just jump in real quick?
big issue is the people have the right to petition. We're the people they petition to. You're asking for us to suspend the Constitution. We don't have the right to do that.
I would just say, serving as a chairman, in real time, I can work with Mr. Evans, the city staff, and just, you know, if there's a month from tonight, or the day before a month from tonight, things are worse or maybe even a little worse, I can just call Mr. Evans and just say, yeah, I think we just need to cancel the meeting. So I don't know that we need a resolution to do that, because I agree with Mr. Eisenbacher, people have the right to petition their government. And I know that there's all kinds of cancellations going on about everything. But I just think that we have flexibility. If Mr. Evans gets 5, 6, 7 more applications, you know, those people need some expeditious consideration. And I think we've always kind of tried to do that. So, I mean, your motion is your motion. I think we took discussion before we were.
No second yet.
Yeah, there was no second. So, is there a second to the motion? You keep pointing to Mr. Evans.
He wants to talk.
Oh, Mr. Evans.
So what I can say is that management, who oversees this building, is looking at it on almost an hourly basis, this rapidly evolving situation that has never come up before. We know that if someone who works in this building is diagnosed, it's likely this building is going to be closed. We also know that things could be a lot different tomorrow, next week, next month than they are today. The city already has canceled some board and commission meetings. We're considering canceling more. And so if management simply believes it's appropriate for everyone's safeguard to cancel meetings, we can also do that. So Mr. Clark is right. As chair, he can agree to cancel the meeting, as well as management's looking at this, as well as all essential and non-essential meetings that the city has with all our boards and commissions, as well as keeping buildings open or not keeping buildings open to the public and or staff. So there's a lot of moving parts in all this, and I trust that management here is doing an excellent job of addressing these, and public health and safety is first and foremost for everyone. So I think we're covered, just in case we end up canceling the meeting and all of a sudden it miraculously changes and things are suitable to have a meeting. With that being said, I don't have any applications for April.
If I may, while I don't think I'm going to get a second, I would like to clarify momentarily. I believe the reason, and I could be wrong, I believe the reason we met is because there was already public notice out about this, as well as the previously postponed planning commission meetings. And because public notice was given, and there was practically minimal or relatively insufficient time to notify publicly to provide that notice, we met this evening. I'm here, obviously, and I'm an alt, so I did not, I was not in the required to attend position. I feel it's important. That's why I'm here, and that's why I volunteered. But I wanted to try to prevent any eventualities like that. Seeing that we have those options available to us, I withdraw the motion.
Okay, so we are now under public comment. If you'd like to address the board on any matter, please come to the microphone. Second. Yeah. No, you can't speak from there.
I understand.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say a word because it needs to go on the public record. So now you are being recorded. So there you go. Go ahead.
Bus driver.
You're used to like barking at kids, right? I'm just kidding.
No, I don't. They don't listen when you bark at them. I just need clarification. The variance was denied, so I cannot park my bus overnight.
Variance was denied. Any questions related to anything related to the variance needs to be directed to Mr. Evans if he's available after the meeting.
After?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are not the city government up here.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I just need to, I don't want to get a ticket. I would need to know.
Yeah, but he is the city government, so he
Got
can
it.
answer
right.
anything you need.
All right.
Thank you very much for coming. Okay, anyone else who'd like to address the board on any matter? Third call. Anybody who would like to address the board on any matter, come to the microphone. See none? Close that out, and we are adjourned.